what is happiness? Speaking of musicians, you know, the Beatles once sang happiness is a warm gun. I'm a big Beatles guy. But maybe we should turn to a comedian, George Burns, who lived to be 100, and he said, happiness is having a large, loving, caring, close-knit family in another city. We heard one of the speeches this morning. He said he moved from Hawaii to Idaho to get away from his family. And he's Asian, right? So that tells you sometimes that could be a positive thing. Of course, we are joking. We are Asian. We're very close to our friends and family. So maybe we'll just go right to the dictionary and get serious for a second. That happiness is a mental or emotional state of well-being characterized by positive or pleasant emotions ranging from contentment to intense joy. There is a word called disgruntled, and it does mean angry or dissatisfied, not a word you often have to explain to people who work full-time for a living. They generally, at one point or another, will be disgruntled. So, you know, comedians, of course, like to play along with language. That is a big thing we like to do. So could you be gruntled? You can. It is actually a word. It is, of course, the opposite of disgruntled. It means pleased or satisfied. And isn't that our ultimate objective? Now, I want to be a little bit careful here, because when a man approached Buddha and said, I want happiness, apparently the Buddha said, that is your problem. You cannot start with I want. Okay, this is making it very much about ego. We're not really supposed to aim directly for happiness. It's a byproduct. But it is tough to argue that we all want to be happy. I took turning 30 really hard. Okay, I turned 30 18 years ago. I'm 48 years old. I don't know if I look 48. I don't think so. They say black don't crack, brown don't frown. Okay, look, I think I look pretty damn good for 48. 30 was a long time ago, and I took it really hard. I moved to California from Ohio because I turned 30. I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. I worked at Procter & Gamble. I was there for 6 years. I was dating an incredible woman. Things seemed great. I had the car, I had the house, but I did not feel fulfilled. I took 30 really hard. I did not take 40 nearly as hard because I'm doing what I want to do with my life. 20 wasn't hard either. I don't know if you remember 20. 10 wasn't very difficult either. These decades, 10 was easy. I remember 10 being fun. I remember the only thing I remember about turning 10 is I walked into the kitchen and I said to my mom, hi, Mom. And she goes, what happened to Mommy? I go, no, Mom, I'm double digits now. Okay, I'm 10. You are Mom going forward. I know. She had a little bit of her heart broken inside, but you know, that's what happened when I was 10. It's just that I think when I turned 30, I remember having this thought of going, I'm so disappointed in myself. What would 16-year-old Rajiv think of 30-year-old Rajiv? You ever play this game with yourself? You think back to what you wanted to be, an astronaut or a cowboy or whatever it is, and you look at yourself now like, I didn't think I'd be doing this when I'm 30 or whatever age it is. And that really upset me until I realized, why would a 16-year-old know more about being 30 than a 30-year-old, right? So don't let that happen to you, because you're 16, you don't know what it's like to be 30. You're 30, you remember what it's like to be 16 or 10. But a lot of people have arrived at a similar conclusion. I'm a big tennis fan, grew up playing tennis. One of the great quotes is by Martina Navratilova, who said, the moment of victory is much too short to live for that and nothing else. And it's a great illustration of, it's not the destination, is the journey. I hear that all the time, it's true, but I love this embodiment of that quote. Lily Tomlin, great funny comedian. The trouble with the rat race is that even if you win, you're still a rat. I love that. She's commenting on how we are in America, I feel, and I think this cuts to the very core of why it's so hard to be happy. There's been research that tells us that happiness has 3 components. It's 50% genes, it is 10% circumstances, and it is 40% actions. Now, if you were dealt a bad hand, a friend of mine is an ophthalmologist. I'm Indian, obviously. I have an ophthalmologist friend. And he told me, he's like, some people are just dealt a bad hand when it comes to health. They come in, they just have bad eyes. It's not their fault. That's just the way that it is. But if you're on the cusp, then 40 percentage points is a lot. If some tips and tricks in your circumstances can take you from 35% to 75%, that is a very big deal. Because sometimes you don't need to do something different. You can continue to do what you're doing and do it differently. There's a big difference. Do something different or do what you're doing differently. You might not need to quit P&G in Cincinnati and move to Los Angeles and be a stand-up comic. That might not be the only way to find happiness. You might not need an overhaul. You just need a couple of tweaks. Because it's our impulse a lot of the time when something isn't working to swing the pendulum completely the other way and say, screw this, it's not working, I'm taking another path. You don't necessarily have to do that. And I remember working at Procter & Gamble Punjabis and Gujaratis, PNG, the Peej. And I remember that one of the internal mottos was, make a little, sell a little, learn a lot. And I loved that. I loved that idea. So sometimes it can be illustrated in a different way. Epicurus in the 4th century apparently said, I wasn't there, if thou wilt make a man happy, add not unto his riches, but take away from his desires. It was also sung in the 1940s by 2 men who sang a song called You Have to Accentuate the Positive, Eliminate the Negative. And the rest of that is you've got to spread joy up to the maximum, bring gloom down to the minimum. They're giving us a formula. They may not have realized it. And it was also illustrated by 4 guys in the 1990s called Boyz II Men, one of my favorite first groups. I am a 90s kid all the way, so I love this song. And I'm not going to try to sing this because it's way below my octaves, but they sang, the good times that made us laugh outweigh the bad. Now, why am I giving you all of these different quotes? Because it turns out there is a happiness formula beyond the makeup of it, and I'm giving you the addition. I'm now going to give you the division. There is a happiness quotient, okay? Now, this is mine, and this is what I came up with. I said happiness is your perception of reality, not only reality, but also your perception of reality over your assumptions. Now, I want to be very, very careful because I once had this as expectations. And somebody goes, don't put expectations, because then you're basically telling people to lower their expectations. And people always say, you want to be happy, lower your expectations. Yeah, but if you have a happiness set point and an expectation set point, that's hard to do sometimes. I'll give you some tips and tricks for it, but you essentially have to increase the numerator and decrease the denominator, right? That's pretty simple, very simple math. Even a comedian who hasn't done a differential equation in a long time can remember a very, very simple formula like this of increasing the numerator and decreasing the denominator. Another one is text messages are a constant stream of things. So I have a rule where when I get a ping, I reply to the text to before it, because you're going to get another text, right? What did Jerry Seinfeld say? He goes, when I was young, my mom would always scold me, say, you're going to ruin your appetite. When you become an adult, you realize there's another appetite coming right behind it. Okay, there's another one coming constantly. There's always going to be another text. And yeah, I might have changed the names here to impress you. But at any rate, yes, yeah, those aren't all real texts necessarily, but it makes it interesting. So that's another thing that I do is I don't reply right away, because you get just sucked into all of these conversations on text and whatever else, and I make people wait a little bit. It is very, very rarely urgent. I mean, people will call you if it's urgent. I know the younger people in the room are like, you probably don't even know if your phone can make phone calls, because all you do is text. Like, calling without texting now is like, in our generation, it was the stopping by without calling. That's the new version of that. People would just pop by your house. People now will never dare call you without texting you first. But if it's that urgent, I think that they will do it. This is Seth Godin. He's one of the big people in marketing. He said, it's dangerous to define yourself by only your successes. I'm a freelancer now, and some months are way better than others. And we only do the math. We do the math only in good months. Make $20,000 this month, you go, oh my God, 20,000 times 12, I'm going to make almost $250,000 this year. Nobody does that in the months where you make $0. No one goes, I'm making 0 times 12. I'm going to make $0 this year. You don't do it. You do the math only in the good months, and that's dangerous, because that's not reality. There's a separation between self-perception and reality. That's a really, really important key distinction to make. And so Seth Godin, I asked him, I go, you're a millionaire, okay, but you've had some booms and busts. How do you do it? How do you deal with the booms and busts? Because engineering and science, you're plodding along. Every now and then there's a spike or a trough, but for the most part, my gosh, it's quite linear a lot of the time. And he said, because I define myself as an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur is a person who has a series of successes and failures. Because so when I fail, I'm just as much of an entrepreneur as when I succeed, as long as I learn something. It's like, oh, that's a really good way to look at it. He doesn't go, oh my gosh, if only I can start one more company that makes $1 million, I'm an entrepreneur. No, you're an entrepreneur right now. You're an engineer right now. You're a scientist right now. What did Thomas Edison say? I haven't failed. I've found 10,000 ways that don't work, right? So I think it's a really, really salient point.